Well, I had a dream just an hour or so ago. A bit more. 3 hours ago, I think. And it woke me up. In the dream, visually, I swept away half of what was on the table by my nonconformity, or what was seen as therefore nonconformity, of course, to sweep the table clear. And the people started to leave because they were disappointed in the way the time had transpired together. And I was so clear how half was left on the table and the rest of the table, the other half, exactly a line across the middle of it, oblong table, the rest was clear. And I was unhappy that they were disappointed. I felt almost that I'd done something wrong. You know, you're supposed to conform. Don't know what to make of the dream. Guide me, Father, can you? I have in the back of my mind, I'm coping with a situation where I've got lots of ants in my accommodation, and they're not a trouble in that they're not particularly on the surfaces that I'm using or anything, but they're down there in the corners and by the doorway. Not where I would tread on them or anything, don't get me wrong. An extraordinary number. And it's not something I can just ignore. I sort of have visions of it getting out of hand, that then I will have to act, and would it be better to act now? And is the action to kill these things, these creatures? And I just don't want to do that so much, don't want to do that. I don't want to be imagining the suffering that I would be causing on a massive scale. So many tiny creatures. I don't think I could bear to live in a house that was infested with some infestation. Bit like gross untidiness or hoarding. It makes life just seize up. So I'm a bit sort of puzzled, and I think that might in some way have some relation to the dream, at least in that both are a manifestation of concern, discontent, stress of sort, regret. So what's my solution? I don't understand the dream, and I don't understand... well, I did yesterday evening. Well, first of all, I thought, I'll ask God about this. Give me a solution, God. No, I don't want to kill him. The ants, I mean. And within a very short while, I thought, oh, well, I'll check on Google. How do you deter ants from being in your premises, And a very helpful page or two of advice came up in the end, quite quickly, in fact. They don't like cinnamon powder, they don't like citronella, they don't like lemon juice and that, lemon peel around. It tends to dissuade them. Put it around their access point and block the access point with some sort of caulking material. Glue it up so they no longer come in. But I of course thought, well, what about those that are in? I've got some, and those that are there at the minute. Well, you could sweep them out the way, I suppose. I thought of vaguely sweeping them up, literally in a dustpan and shaking them out the window. That's just a step in the right direction without killing them. But on the other hand, they'd be so divorced from their community, I'm not sure how much suffering that would cause, and death perhaps, on a large scale. But do you see, the answers starting to come, and of course it occurs to me talking to you now, well, you thank God for the situation. Thank you, Dad. I don't understand how to quite cope with this. And show me, Lord, I'm open to your ideas. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Yes, it is a problem, isn't it? Thank you for the problem. Wonder why you're giving it to me, but let's deal with it. Thank you, Dad. And the dream was, I say, I'm not sure what the connection of the dream might be. It only might be because I'm aware that God has to keep heaven as heaven, else it wouldn't be. And that involves keeping certain persons out, consciousness-wise, at least temporarily. I'm not sure how temporarily, but if you like, the ants are an invasion of my privacy from them that would affect my quality of life. So I try to find a good way of making sure they don't. By good, I mean one that doesn't result in mayhem and death and harm. But it may seem it to them, of course. They're seeking either different accommodation for the community or food source, or both. And if I prevent that, I will be seen as a great disappointment to them, a great cost. Do you see, we are judging God like that too. Oh, you're keeping me out of heaven. And, I'm sort of clamouring at the door. Good God would let me into heaven. And if you're going to spoil the place, no. Do you see? All, I slightly hesitate to say, but all of your experiences in life are to help you understand God's view. His true reality. And these problems give you enlightenment in that regard. Not only how to behave yourself, but how God has solved the dilemma of what's best to do. or even created the dilemma for some good reason. We trust him, you see. He's our guide. The reason we exist. We understand may well be because of him and his existence. And we run with that. We run with that because we find that when we do, life is so much better. And if you haven't found that yet, well, you need to try, taste and see. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Of course, it's not long ago that I spent a couple of weeks helping my friend move one chaos in one house, huge one, to another house that was smaller. And I then spent much of the days trying to keep up with the living room area, to try and keep part of it tidy, usable, normal, not just heaped with mountains of stuff that needed to be sorted and most of it thrown away. And of course, happily I've been able to abandon that now, in that they're installed in the house and they're adjusting to the way they want to live and deal with the chaos. They may seem to be dealing in the chaos really rather than with it, but it might have something, my dream, to do with that. A realization at heart that, well, if you don't deal with the chaos, and the chaos deals with you. And ultimately that means there is no life. I had a recording that was so brief, it was something ridiculous, like 8 seconds long, or 18 seconds long. And it was called marshalling. And I just meant that my recordings are marshalling one's ideas. And I thought, oh, this is egotistical, this recording, and in what sense is it a blessing to people? It's just a quirky marshal, don't publish that. So I've labelled it for not publishing. But perhaps it's more fundamental than I gave it credit for, that if you don't organise, systematise, lay out, you don't make things handleable. You just have chaos, and chaos is not conducive to life, but to just rotting and confusions of life. You know, bugs and disease and infestations, and you have to deal with the inconsistencies and the things that are not useful. You have to clear, to marshal your ideas, your thoughts. Understanding is the marshalling of ideas. I know this sounds terribly egotistical now because my name's Marshall, isn't it? But my life took off when I suddenly realised you could work out what the teacher would ask in a test pretty well. You know, answers that would fit the 10 questions he's going to ask for the test. And it's extremely predictable, and you can do it. It's feasible. You can just sit down and look at the book or the notes you've got, and know he's going to ask, what is a so-and-so? How many are such and such? What are the advantages of so-and-so? Is so-and-so this or that? You can go into the test and get virtually all the questions right. So often. And the rest of the class doesn't seem to realise this, or at least doesn't want to know. And this was me first marshalling my ideas. And of course I got to university and, ended up lecturing and all that sort of stuff, research. Staggering achievement. It's life itself. Logic, reason. It's driven my whole life. With amazingly unexpected consequences like devotion to God from secular beginnings and through a pathway of being devoted to logic and the academic life. I was an outstanding student, not quite honestly because of genius brilliance, but sheer tenacity and reasoning. He didn't let up on people, lecturers and so on. But why so-and-so? What about so-and-so? That doesn't seem consistent. Does that include so-and-so? Do you mean... No, I don't understand that. What does that mean? Of course, I had the confidence, the incredible confidence to speak. I always took the view that if I'm not following it, there's a lot of people here not following it. I bet I'm not the only one. But of course, in the end, people around you start to realise you're asking questions they don't even understand the questions, and you're having a chat with the lecturer. They get terribly impressed and think you're an absolute genius, of course, But I don't think you are, really. It's just that you're pursuing earnestly truth. And what you understand by truth might start to shift and change. It's very real. And now I find, that it's a sort of pragmatic truth that what you understand seems to turn on your imagination. And then looking for parallels to your imagination in the world around you. And in as far as this helps make life better in some way, well, that's the reward. And you do more of it. You become incredibly creative. Well, of course, we're children of God. Again, that's my trust. It's not something I know. It's something the experience of feeling this seems to be true. The more I believe it, the more I see it, and the happier life is, and creative, of course. But there are costs. The people around you don't necessarily want to move at the speed or the direction that you want to move in. And your nonconformity is some concern to them because they are not so motivated for, if you like, truth. You know, the Theosophy basic principle written up on their chart of who they are is there's no religion like truth. You know, the greatest religion is the pursuit of truth. It dwarfs the validity of anything else. It defines what we mean by validity even. And you can argue that to some extent, well, this is a sort of truism, you defined it as such, and that could well be true. What I'm finding increasingly in life is that reality and imagination are not polar opposites by any means. That reality is only understood by imagination. And it's as if the two go hand in hand. Not destructive of each other, but encouraging each other, that our imagination becomes very practical, very realistic, that our realism becomes extremely imaginative. And the benefits that flow from that. Just wonderful. Thank you, Dad. Well, I haven't focused too much on effectively solving why I had the dream or what it means, nor really on the connection to a couple of issues that I raised, and conformity and non-conformity generally, but I feel blessed by the recording and I hope you are too. Thank you, Dad.
Oh, well, I have to contradict myself here, because when I reread it, and possibly you had the same impression, it does respond, doesn't it? You can't live with chaos. You know, it's like if you have 20 pets in your house. I mean, you can't live with that. You've got no order. Everything's likely to be upset. You can't live with a few thousand ants. That's the reality. Life is going to be greatly affected by that. So if push came to shove, I would kill the ants. Well, I'd probably sweep them up and put them out the window, put them in the garden and hope they survive. Assume that, well, I don't know, I had a look out in the garden, I couldn't find their entry to the house. It's probably under the house, because this is well, if you include the stuff underneath of 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like 4 stories. There's an underneath which is very open to every sort of creature, really, and very dark and gloomy in there. It's just used as a wood store and so on. So in that sense, you could say that's not a good idea to have that sort of property, perhaps. Or it'd be better if you were able to definitely seal every room, but some window fittings are very difficult to seal against things like ants. They're so small, aren't they? But anyway, that's not really the problem. I don't think I have to kill. I do my best to find alternatives, and I'm using cinnamon sticks, cinnamon powder, hot chili pepper, lemon juice, that might be it. Oh, I ground up the lemon peel as well, so I'm using lemon peel, and in large measure we're winning, but I haven't won yet. But I am, well, I'm 90% of the way. So I'm rather pleased with myself. I mean, thank you, God. Thank you, Heavenly Father. And yes, getting back to the point, did I answer did I get my prayer answered? I think the answer is yes. You can't live with chaos. You must deal with it. Creation comes from order. You can't create from chaos and disorder. You have to organize the chaos, and then you start creating. It's a sort of foundation of creating, to know where everything is, in a sense, or at least what you need, and where to get it, and to have it to hand, and so on. In other words, creation has to be reasonably economic, or you won't do it. You've got other things that are more pressing and important. This is so in our dimension. I'm not sure about heaven, but I do feel we're learning the lessons here for a reason. So they may be foundation for some sort of necessary heavenly principle, which we can't quite surmise yet, not having much of a clue of heaven. There you go. Thank you, Dad. Oh yes, and I did feel it answered the nonconfaumitee. It's pretty unusual in my culture to be bothered about killing ants, and I'm very bothered. And people sort of smile at the notion that I don't want to kill them. I'd like to discourage them coming in, as if, oh my goodness, what's he doing now? My nonconformity of religion is too much for so many people that, I don't just have to keep myself away from infestations. I have to keep myself away from society for their sake. I'm reminded of that chap who only came to his gate 2 or 3 times a year, and the rest of the year he stayed in his house. He was one of these Eastern hats, is he? Sadhu rather, yeah. And probably pretty enlightened, actually. But he didn't venture out of his house, just to the gate on special ceremonial occasions, and that's about it. And when asked, it's not for my benefit, it's for theirs. In other words, he knows he's too much for people. And that is not a blessing. In other words, they're not ready by any means for his level of discipline or spiritual discipline and order and motivation and advancement, quite honestly. He's just way ahead. It would be too much for others in general. But he is available to any serious, earnest inquirer, like he himself has been in his path to where he is now. And that's lovely, isn't it? So, yes, you can't have all the wildlife in your private apartments. Keep them modest so that you're not too much cost on the world. And be strict. They're not allowed in. And you don't just invite all and sundry into your home. That will just bring chaos. It is true, many people are homeless, and you have a home. That does not mean that God wishes you to basically give up your home that they all live in it and turn it into a tip and pretty unlivable in. You are important to God, and He takes account of where you are, and He allows you the opportunities that He does allow. You do not have to surrender them in some charitable act. You can be charitable, but not to the extent that it harms you, by which we really mean harms your spiritual life, because you're living too close to too much evil if you're not strict at keeping evil at bay. Something like that. Bless you. Thank you, Dad. Perhaps I should just add, you should help others to the extent that if you were an onlooker looking at you and the others, that would be right. In other words, you need to be very objective, not self-sacrificing any more than self-indulgent at other people's expense. All my children matter to me. I give some certain things and others certain other things and others not. They don't all have equal. They're not all the same. That would warrant them all having equal. It is right that I allocate as I allocate. How much more God? So yes, you can be charitable and kind, but not stupid, not self-sacrificing, but certainly not indulgent either. Just right. Bless you. Thank you, Dad.